Hey, I'm Eric Triplett, the Pond Digger. Today we're in Ventura, California, and we're gonna do some annual spring pond care on this ecosystem pond, and we're gonna walk you through the process. Now this occurs naturally out in nature because you have rain and you have snow, and when that snow melts out, it flushes the natural ponds out with fresh water, rejuvenating them for the next season. In a backyard pond, we need to perform this task manually, especially since in a backyard pond, we're putting a lot of fish in there, we're interacting with them, we're feeding them, and in an ornamental pond like this one, we have a lot more fish than you would have per gallon of water out in nature. So this process is really important. Now this particular pond was experiencing some string algae. We treated it with some rock and waterfall scrubber, and we got the algae under control. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna drain down the pond, we're gonna thin out the plants, we're gonna clean all the sludge behind all the rocks and through all the gravel in that process, and we're gonna flush it out and fill it up with brand new water and get it ready for the next season. So the first order of business is to prepare a holding facility for all the livestock in the pond. We have some turtles in here, we have a lot of minnows, we have a few koi. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna set up our holding tank, we're gonna pump some fresh water from the pond before we stir everything up, and we'll reserve that water, and that's where we'll put all the fish. Now we're gonna drain the water down pretty low, and all the fish will be in one small area for us to catch easily, and then we'll transfer them into that bowl. So let's get that tub set up and ready to go. All right, get the aerator set up. Let's run extension cord into the garage right there. And then grab the pump so we can start draining. All right, we have our holding tank set up. We have some water reserved for our fish and our livestock, turtles and minnows and so forth. We have an aerator system in here to keep the water agitated and provide valuable oxygen. Now each season I hear a lot of fatalities with fish, and I just want to touch on this real quick because I think we can prevent some of that. Oftentimes I'll have a homeowner get a brand new trash can from a local hardware store. You know, say it's a 35 or 50 gallon trash can. It's very tall with a small surface area. And they put all their fish in there, and then they go to work on their pond, and several hours later they are ignoring the fish, and the fish are gasping for air. They've been starved of oxygen, and it could be a fatal mistake. So what we want to do is make sure we have a larger body of water with a bigger surface area, and we want to have an air system in there so we can provide them oxygen, so we can take our time to clean the pond. So part of our spring pond care, when we're draining the pond down like this, we want to take that opportunity to do a real thorough inspection of all the other components in the pond. Your underwater lighting system, we want to check on all the filters if you have aerators or UVs or anything like that. This is the time of year where we go through everything. We're going to take the pump out, we're going to check on the skimmer components, all the filter pads. This is the best time of year to do it, so when you kick off the season, you can rest and relax the rest of the year. So we pull this pump out for inspection. I'm gonna go ahead and take it apart and clean this impeller out so it doesn't get frozen later in the season. Okay, so on this particular pump, this little Alpine 3100, I've taken this screen off, and this protects the impeller housing, which is in here. I've taken out these 4 screws, and now what I'll do is I'll give it a little quarter turn. See that little quarter turn like that? I'll pop this out. And what I want to do is just clean this guy out. You see some sludge kind of building up in here. I mean, that happens in a season. And if you don't touch this thing for a couple years, then all that stuff starts to build up and it'll make your pump die prematurely. So we're just going to clean this out real quick and put it back together and install it again. An old toothbrush works good to get in here. So this is a magnetic drive pump for those of you watching that kind of want to understand what's going on here, the engineer type. This guy here is a magnet, and when it sits inside this shaft right here, when the motor turns on, it spins this magnet, and this impeller spins, and that's what drives the water. So if there's a pretty small tolerance level in there, when you put it in there, it's pretty tight. So if it starts to get some calcium deposits or algae or just sludge, gunk built up in there, then the impeller doesn't spin as well as it's supposed to. As I go to put this guy back together, I'm gonna grab a little bit of silicone lubricant, and I'm just gonna lubricate this O-ring real quick. Throw this guy back on there, keeps it nice and soft. These two notches line up, nice and tight. Then I can go put this guy back on. Remember, it's that quarter turn. There we are. And I'll just insert my 4 screws again. So this piece goes back on. I might as well take the time to open up and check on this O-ring. This is the O-ring for our check valve assembly. Give that a quick cleaning. And while I'm at it, I'll just throw a little bit of that silicone O-ring on there, lubricant. Throw it in there. That's good to go. So we're just going to hand tighten this union because we have the O-ring in there, and that seals it off. We'll throw our blue pad back in there, slide in our basket plate, and then our notch right here is for the cord to go through. And on the helix skimmer, we want to make sure that this basket plate is below these screws right here. Now this is our overflow for when we have rain, and it's set nice, and it still has some good Teflon tape in there. And we have this loosened right now. This is our automatic fill valve, and that's just gonna have it shut off, so we're draining the pond. And we'll get this readjusted before we finish up the pond.